Sally Struthers is on the cover, and if you've read the article, you found out that Carroll O'Connor apparently is not too happy with Sally's new show.
On screen, they were Archie Bunker and his little girl, Gloria, America's favorite, if famously dysfunctional, father and daughter. Their fights were legendary, their makeups were heartfelt, and their dynamic defined a generation of television. Off-screen, Carroll O'Connor and Sally Struthers had a bond that for years seemed just as real and just as powerful. Struthers often said that after losing her own father, she'd gained a new one in O'Connor. He was her mentor, her protector, and her dear friend. But as time went on, a quiet distance grew between them. The laughter that once filled the All in the Family set faded into a silence that left fans wondering what went wrong. For decades, a rumor has haunted the internet, a story of a deathbed confession from O'Connor, a final heartbreaking admission he supposedly made at age 74 about what truly destroyed his friendship with his television daughter. It's a tale of regret, of a relationship shattered by tragedy and misunderstanding. But is it the truth? In this video, we're investigating that exact claim. We'll uncover what Carroll O'Connor actually said, cut through the decades of speculation, and reveal the real, complex, and far more poignant story of a father-daughter bond that shaped, and perhaps even haunted, them both for the rest of their lives. To understand the weight of the silence that would later fall, you first have to appreciate just how deep their connection was. When All in the Family hit the airwaves in 1971, it was a massive gamble. Nobody had ever seen a show like it. It was loud, controversial, and brutally honest. At its center was the Bunker family, and at the heart of that family was the complicated love between a bigoted father and his progressive daughter. Carroll O'Connor was a thoughtful, highly educated, and liberal man, the total opposite of Archie Bunker. He was already a respected character actor, but this role would make him a global superstar. Sally Struthers, nearly 25 years younger, was a relative newcomer. More importantly, she was nursing a private heartache. As she revealed to Fox News in a 2021 interview, she was carrying a profound sense of loss when she landed the role of Gloria. In 1968, my own father passed away, she shared. I was still feeling bad and fatherless when I got this show. The set of All in the Family quickly became more than just a job for Struthers. It was a sanctuary. And Carroll O'Connor and his wife, Nancy, became family. Struthers recalled, Carroll and his wife Nancy turned out to be as parental with me as he was in the show. Carroll gave me advice. He laughed at my antics. He hugged me all the time. This wasn't just a young actress being grateful. The bond, it was real, and everyone on set could see it. O'Connor, the veteran, took Struthers under his wing. He was famously meticulous, often rewriting his lines to better serve the character and the story. He saw in Struthers a raw talent to be nurtured. He pushed her, challenged her, and celebrated her successes like they were his own. The affection was a two-way street. In a 1982 interview, when asked if she called him Mr. O'Connor, Struthers' reply perfectly captured their dynamic. Yes, out of respect, because he is a most incredible performer. I fear and love God. I respect Mr. O'Connor. It was a statement of deep, abiding respect mixed with the kind of awe a daughter has. For her father, their on-screen chemistry was a direct result of this off-screen reality. Those moments when Archie's gruff exterior would crack to reveal a flash of protective love for Gloria felt so real because, in many ways, they were. O'Connor's affection for Struthers was genuine. And when Gloria looked at Archie with that mix of frustration and unbreakable love, that was real, too. Audiences felt it, and it's what elevated the show from a brilliant social satire into a timeless story about family. This paternal relationship went beyond hugs and advice. In a detail that speaks volumes, Struthers revealed it was O'Connor who introduced her to her future husband, William Rader, cementing his role as a true father figure who cared about her happiness on and off the set. She summed it up perfectly. So I gained a father again by doing that show. For 8 seasons, this was how things were. The core for O'Connor, Gene Stapleton, Rob Reiner, and Sally Struthers were a true ensemble, a tight-knit unit that made television history. Through it all, the bond between the on-screen father and daughter seemed unshakable. But as the show's historic run began to wind down, the first hairline cracks started to appear. The world of television is a machine. While we see the final product, the people involved are constantly dealing with contracts, negotiations, and creative differences. It's easy to assume that any tension between actors means a friendship is over. But more often than not, it's just business. Back in 1974, at the show's peak, Carroll O'Connor got into a major contract dispute with producer Norman Lear, and for a while, it looked like Archie Bunker might get written out of the show entirely. The issue was eventually resolved, but it was a reminder that this was a commercial enterprise. A year later, Struthers found herself in a similar spot, filing a lawsuit to break her contract to pursue a film career, which led to her missing several episodes. These were standard Hollywood negotiations, not personal attacks. But they did signal a shift, as the actors' individual careers began to pull them in different directions. The real turning point came at the end of the 70s. After 8 seasons, Rob Reiner and Sally Struthers decided it was time to leave. Their characters, Mike and Gloria, moved to California, and for the audience, it was the end of an era. The show was then retooled into Archie Bunker's place, but the original magic was gone. It was during this time, in the early 80s, that the idea for a new spin-off, Gloria, emerged. The show would follow Struthers' character as a single mom starting a new life. And this is where the rumors of a rift between O'Connor and Struthers really start. The gossip suggests O'Connor was deeply unhappy with the spin-off, feeling it cheapened the legacy they had built. Some stories claim he was shut out of the process, or that his advice was ignored, and that he saw it as a betrayal. So, what's the truth? The evidence is murky. There are no definitive interviews from that time where O'Connor publicly bashes the show, but knowing how fiercely protective he was of his characters, it's not hard to imagine he might have had some reservations. For her part, Struthers' motivation was purely professional. She was excited to lead her own series. In a 1982 interview, she said, "It's so exciting going from Fourth Banana to your own show. It's like going to Oz." She explained that the show was a chance to explore new sides of Gloria as a modern working mother, and setting it far from Archie's world was a deliberate choice to let the character grow on her own. It wasn't a malicious move, it was a smart career choice. But for O'Connor, who had been her mentor and father figure, maybe that professional separation felt personal. The Gloria series, however, was canceled after just 1 season. The magic of the bunkers proved impossible to replicate. With its end, the last professional link between O'Connor and Struthers was gone. They were no longer part of the same TV universe. Now, they were just two people who had once been incredibly close, and the quiet distance between them began to grow into a noticeable silence. For years after Gloria ended, a story began to take hold. Carroll O'Connor and Sally Struthers were estranged. The narrative was that their deep, familial bond had completely dissolved into a cold, enduring silence. They were rarely seen together, and to many, it seemed the friendship was officially over. But was it really that dramatic? Did a bitter feud cause them to stop speaking for decades? The evidence, especially from Sally Struthers herself, paints a much different, more nuanced, and frankly, more heartbreaking picture. Year after year, Struthers never failed to express her love and gratitude. For O'Connor, her words were never those of a woman holding a grudge. They were the words of someone mourning a connection that had been changed by time and circumstance, but not destroyed by anger. The most powerful evidence against the bitter feud story comes from Struthers' own feelings about watching reruns. In multiple interviews over the years, she's shared the same sentiment. "Whenever I see an episode on TV now, I stop for a second," she said in an interview summarized by me. "As soon as I see Carroll or Jean, I get so sad that I have to change the channel." That isn't how someone with anger reacts. Anger lets you watch old memories with distance. Deep sadness, the kind that makes you change the channel, comes from a place of unresolved love and loss. Seeing O'Connor on screen wasn't a bitter reminder of a fight. It was a painful reminder of the man she loved and missed the father figure she gained, then lost to distance, and eventually, to death. So if there was no big fight, what explains the distance? The reality is probably far more ordinary than any Hollywood gossip column. Life happens. O'Connor went on to another huge TV hit within the heat of the night, while Struthers built an extensive career in TV, film, and theater. The daily intimacy of working together was gone, and the phone calls likely became less frequent, not out of malice, but because life simply pulled them in different directions. It's a story many of us can relate to. You have a coworker you cherish, but once you're no longer in the same office, it takes a huge effort to maintain that closeness. Their relationship was also fundamentally paternal. As Struthers grew into her own as an artist and a mother, the dynamic naturally shifted. The gradual separation that happens in any parent-child relationship was likely misinterpreted from the outside as a negative drifting apart. A feud is more dramatic, but the truth of a slow, quiet fade is so much more human. There probably wasn't a single event, no slammed doors or angry words. There was just the relentless march of time and the sad reality that some of our most important relationships are tied to a specific time and place. And then, a real tragedy struck, one that would consume Carroll O'Connor, change him forever, and make any chance of a simple reconciliation impossible. On March 28, 1995, Carroll O'Connor's world was shattered. His only son, Hugh, whom he had adopted as an infant, died by suicide at the age of 32 after a long and painful battle with drug addiction. A distraught Hugh had called his father to say goodbye, and O'Connor frantically called the police. But it was too late. The grief that followed was immense, and it transformed into a white-hot rage with a singular purpose. O'Connor publicly named the man who had supplied his son with drugs and channeled his sorrow into a relentless crusade. In a raw, tearful television interview shortly after Hugh's death, he declared, "That man is a partner in my son's death. He dedicated the rest of his life to holding drug dealers accountable." successfully lobbying for the passage of the Drug Dealers Civil Liability Act in California, which allows families to sue the dealers who supplied fatal drugs to their loved ones. This became his final, most passionate work. This devastating tragedy is the only lens through which you can view the final years of Carroll O'Connor's life. A parent who loses a child in such a horrific way is fundamentally changed. Their world shrinks, their priorities shift, and their capacity for maintaining old connections can be buried under an unbearable loss. This brings us back to the central claim that at age 74, Carroll O'Connor gave a rare interview and finally confessed what ended his friendship with Sally Struthers. This is the hook for countless online articles and videos, which claim he was full of regret and said his son's death caused him to shut people out, with his friendship with Struthers becoming a casualty. So, did this confession actually happen? After an exhaustive search of credible, archived interviews from that period, the answer is a clear and definitive no. There is no verifiable record of Carroll O'Connor ever giving an interview at age 74, or any other age, where he specifically names Sally Struthers and confesses to ending their friendship. The quotes attributed to him in these online rumors are completely unsourced. They appear to be fabrications. So why did this myth start? It's a classic case of blending a kernel of truth with a mountain of speculation. The truth is that O'Connor's grief did change him. As he once said about his son's death, "There isn't a day that I don't think of him and want him back. And I'll feel that way until I'm not here anymore." A man living with that pain absolutely did withdraw. The rumor likely spawned from someone connecting that general truth to the pre-existing gossip about his estrangement from It created a neat, dramatic story. It's a compelling story. It's just not true. The confession at 74 is modern folklore. He didn't need to name Sally Struthers in some made-up confession. His entire being was a confession of pain. His world had narrowed to focus on his wife, Nancy, and his crusade in his son's name. The silence between them wasn't a punishment. It was a symptom of a much deeper sorrow. On June 21, 2001, Carroll O'Connor passed away at 76, with Nancy, his wife of nearly 50 years, by his side. Tributes poured in for the man who gave the world Archie Bunker. If the rumors of a bitter, unfixable feud were true, you wouldn't have expected Sally Struthers to be at his funeral, but she was there. On June 26, 2001, she joined Rob Reiner, Norman Lear, and hundreds of others at a Los Angeles church to say goodbye. Photos from that day show her visibly emotional, wiping away tears. This was not an obligation. It was the act of a daughter mourning a father. Her words to a reporter at the service speak volumes. She said, "I shared such an incredible time and space with Carroll. Very few people ever get to do that in their lives. To have that history time, of which all I did for 8 years was laugh. I feel so lucky now that I had that." Those aren't the words of someone reflecting on a broken friendship. They're the words of someone choosing to remember the best of times. She doesn't hint at a falling out or a confession. She speaks only of the laughter and the incredible bond they shared. Her presence and her words prove that whatever distance had grown between them, it was dwarfed by the love that had once defined their relationship. In the years since, her story has never changed. It's always been one of enduring affection and the pain of loss. Her admission that she can't watch reruns because seeing Carroll and Gene Stapleton makes her too sad is perhaps the most powerful evidence of all. It shows that their connection wasn't a chapter that simply closed, but a love that was real, deep, and lasting. The real story isn't about what ended their friendship, because in the ways that mattered, it never truly did. The love, respect, and sense of family remained. The story was complicated by fame, career, and ultimately, a tragedy so immense it would have understandably overshadowed everything else. The story of Carroll O'Connor and Sally Struthers is a powerful reminder that behind the celebrity gossip are real people with complex, messy, human relationships. Theirs wasn't a simple tale of a friendship made and then broken. It was a decades-long journey of a father-daughter bond, born on a subtle stage that weathered the storms of Hollywood and the deepest personal grief. The rumored confession at 74 inches is a myth, created to provide a simple answer to a complicated story. The truth isn't found in a dramatic revelation, but in the loving words of Sally Struthers in her presence at his funeral, and in her pain at watching the joyful moments they once shared. The real story is that life intervened, careers pulled them apart, and an unimaginable tragedy created a private world of grief for O'Connor that few could penetrate. The silence between them was likely not one of anger, but of circumstance and sorrow. The love, as Struthers' own actions prove, endured. It was a love bigger than any rumor, and it is the true legacy of Archie and Gloria. What are your favorite memories of All in the Family? Do you think the real story of their bond is more powerful than the myth? Let us know in the comments. And for more true stories behind your favorite classic television shows, don't forget to subscribe.